Hello, everyone, and welcome to the tavern. It's almost over. But man, this episode really got me angry. I was raging by the end of it. It took me quite some time to calm down so I could actually record this. And the odd thing is, my brother's response was hysterical laughter. It broke his brain so much, all he could do was laugh at how bad everything is. It was his way to deal with and cope with what this episode had to offer. But he's not doing this review. I am. So I hope you're ready for a lot of anger, because my anger tank isn't even close to empty, because I have plenty of venom to inflict on this series. Let's break it down. Well, one minor disappointment. I was wrong in my prediction. There wasn't a big cat fight this episode, even though the next time basically implied there would be a cat fight. So let's just get through this pathetic excuse for a story. We open with showing footage from the previous episode of the super cannon being fired, about Ku disappearing, and Neon being like, oh, I feel a little sick. Then we continue with Neon as she realizes it didn't summon Shuji back, so she decides to target Earth. She tries to power it up, but realizes it needs time to charge up, and then the G-Quuuuux shows up, and she's like, if you're gonna stand in my way, I'll kill you too! And then they fight, and 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 they fight. Then we get Chili Bowl, and he's like, I want to save all the new types. And then he immediately uses his mobile armor to murder a bunch of new types. Because hypocrisy is fun, kids. We then cut to the command ship, where the captain of the Not White base is like, what's going on? And then Lieutenant Sheamus shows up for some reason. I didn't even know she was still on the ship. We haven't seen her since episode 5. And she's like, Shali Bull's a traitor, and he's going to kill Cecilia Zabi because he believes it's the only way to save new types. I like the fact that this line exists in case you didn't figure out what Shalia Bull's plan was by this point. Which I don't blame you. It's poorly written, but it is there. That is kind of his goal. How Lieutenant Sheamus knows it is yeah. But she does, because bad writing. We see Macho and Neon talk a little bit. Macho has a flashback of Shalia Bull saying, when the time comes, shut off the limiter, and that'll help awaken Lala. Her way of removing the limiter is pulling out her gun and just shooting it, which I don't think that's how that works. Also, if you fired a gun in a confined space like that, you'd probably go deaf. And before you say, well, if you're wearing a helmet, it might muffle the sound, she isn't wearing a helmet. She specifically didn't want one, according to the last episode. She needs to wear her beanie when she pilots, instead of being safe. Because, if there's a cockpit breach, she's basically insta-dead, because she's in space. But God forbid our characters act like they're even remotely intelligent at any point in the show. So, she takes her gun, she shoots the computer, and the limiter's off, and it sends off a shockwave, and weird stuff starts happening. We cut to Xavier and Chili Bowl, and they're fighting each other. They're like, Cecilia is evil! No, she's not. Yes, she is. No, she's not. Yes, she is. No, she's not. Then we cut back to Machu, who sees Ghost Shuji and decides to follow where he points. And then Neon sees Ghost Shuji and follows where he points. Sure, why not? Now, for anyone wondering why we kept cutting to the science team those 2 times, and how the characters are basically non-characters, but we still had to see what they had to say for some reason, well, your answer is here. Cecilia Zabi comes across the last remaining of the scientist people, and she's like, I knew it was you, Shar. And Shar's like, oh man, my disguise of putting my hair in front of my face didn't work? Yeah, I'm Shar. Let's have a philosophy talk, but only if it's written by a child with crayons. And Cecilia is like, we're not so different, you and I. Join with me, and together we will rule the galaxy as father and son. Oh wait, that's a different movie. Anyhow, she does the whole join me or die thing, and then out of nowhere, Machu just plummets and faceplants in the ground and dies. Oh no, wait, there's no fall damage in this series, so she just gets up, she's like, whoa, falling really far, and then faceplanting kind of hurts, I guess. And then there's some damage to the building, and Char grabs her and they run, and their running turns into falling again, faceplanting again, and not being hurt again. If they're in space, then their falling shouldn't be like falling. It seems pretty obvious that this space station has artificial gravity. So you can't even use the excuse of, but they're in space, they fall slower. They don't look like they're falling slower to me. And if this place has its own artificial gravity, which it apparently does, you would smack into the ground like you do when there's gravity. But why would I expect them to use scientific information now? So after their recovery from horrible fall damage, Char is hit by a clothes beam. Sure. Hey, member Char? I member. I hate this show. Char is all like, I kind of know you for some reason. But that doesn't really matter. I need to go kill Lala in order to save the world. And Machu is like, no, don't do that. And he's like, I have to. And then leaves. He could have explained to her what, his plan was and why his plan is. But, you could also just say, no time to explain. Bye. Which is what they do. We then cut to Neon, who has found Lady Cecilia, and they have a little bit of a talk for a bit. Then Machu shows up because she's running to get back to the G-Quuuuux. Cecilia aims her gun at Machu. Neon shoots Cecilia, which I love the fact that it's like a gut wound that barely phases Cecilia. Badass. And unfortunately, Cecilia doesn't blow Neon away, which is what I would have expected from that. And instead, everyone just kind of runs off their own directions. Great to see that payoff for the gun. Last episode, they showed how both these girls got their guns. And the payoff is bad, just like I said. Cecilia's Zabi takes a minor shot to the gut, and the limiter for the Saikamu system gets shot. Glad we needed long flashbacks in order to explain how these girls got their guns to do this minor act in this episode. Thanks. Char goes up to the Rose of Sharon, exposits to the audience about what it is and why he must destroy it. Machu shows up, brandishing her axe, just about to take Char out, stopped by Ghost Shuji, and then when both mobile suits kind of turn to face each other, they notice that Lala is awakening. We then cut to Chalia Bull and Xavier, who are still kind of fighting, but they take that little break so that Chili Bull can go and exposit a bit. And then he's like, well, now I need to kill Lady Cecilia because Lala's awakening. They fight. It becomes one of the better fights, but it's also a laser disco, so you got to kind of take the good with the bad. But it really shows what Xavier can do as a pilot, which I do appreciate. It's glad it took them 11 episodes to show that. I also want to point out that their philosophy duel during this fight is clearly written by children of brain damage. Because again, like that previous one, it's a yaha, nuh-uh, yaha, nuh-uh, yaha, nuh-uh. Anyhow, we cut to Komali, who is all like, oh my goodness, that's a true Zek Nova, unlike the previous ones we've seen. Now let me exposit all this knowledge I have about Zek Novas. And in her long exposition, she basically says the previous ones were us affecting their universe, and now it is them affecting our universe. We then cut to Lady Cecilia to see her run into her assistant, and he's like, oh my god, we need to get you medical attention now. And she's like, that light, that powerful light. And the assistant is like, what light? Oh, you're losing a lot of blood. Obviously, you're just kind of delusional. Implying that Cecilia can see the light emanating from the Rose of Sharon, but this other guy is just an old type, can't see it. Nice little touch, but it doesn't really add much to the story, especially because we're nearing our ending. So finally, we get the meeting we've all been waiting for. Char and Shuji. And they have a brief nonsense philosophy thing of it doesn't really matter. What matters is that Shuji goes and says, I'm from the other world, and I came here for reasons. And Char is like, okay, wait, what's that? And to wrap up, basically a portal opens and the RX-78-2 flies out. Because of course it does. That's how dumb this show is. The writing in this show has always had problems. But these last few episodes get worse and worse as you realize all the various ideas they have had have no good, firm conclusion. And a lot of the things we set up as being very important early on have no meaning. The clan battles? Pointless now. Why do we even have those? They don't serve a purpose. They just filled space in a show. It's not like it had a major impact on any character other than we want to earn money to go to Earth. And there's a lot of other ways you could have done a storyline like that. Or that could have been the plot of the whole show. But instead what we get is just a bunch of disparate ideas that are loosely sewn together with a crap ton of member berries, and we're supposed to enjoy that. It's like, here's your processed slop. It comes in 2 flavors, brown and mystery. Enjoy. Needless to say, the story is written by people with brain damage. Let's move on to the characters. The characters suck. First, we have Machu. She does have some minor heroic moments where she wants to protect Lala, and that seems to even override her need to get together with Shuji, or whatever that arc is. Anyhow, this is kind of undercut by the fact that she does whine a lot and is dragged around by other characters, not to mention the fact that she still is given some sass back to Chalia Bull. I thought it was established she was something of a father figure to her, but I guess not. So that's great, she's still a brat. And she's still kind of empty because she just says the one thing she wants, and then that's all her character is. Then we have Neon. She is a horrible hypocrite. She goes from the whole, I don't care about anything except for my own needs, to then saving Machu's life. She has reverse character development in the fact that she's acting more like the Tabula Rasa she was in the earlier episodes than the character she has been in the most recent episodes. Even when asked why she joined Zeon, she's like, And I'm like, what do you mean, You went with Xavier. You had conversations with Lady Cassilia talking about freedom and personal growth. You have reasons for this. And her psychosis is still there, but she just turns it off when she wants to. She is horribly inconsistent, and it's very annoying. But the fact that we were developing her towards this villain type character, and now they're like, oh wait, did we take things too far? I don't know. She's just kind of a girl, you know? It's horrible. And it shows just how poorly planned this series was. When it comes to our minor characters, there isn't much I can actually say. First, we have Xavier. He actually gets to fight in this episode. I do appreciate that. And he isn't entirely useless, but he's not great either. You feel like he'd be more effectual, and it would have been nice if they'd been able to allow him to kill Chalia Bull, or defend his teammates, or help out Neon, or do anything, but he's really just kind of stuck in this endless fight with Chalia Bull, saying, Cassilia is good. No, she's not. Yes, she is. No, she's not. So, still kind of useless in that regard. Then we have Chili Bull. He's also a hypocrite. He talks about how he wants to save all the new types, then immediately murders a bunch of them, because, sure, that's how that works, yeah. He doesn't have much else to say other than Cassilia bad, and you should not like her. And that's kind of it. We then have Lady Cassilia. Admittedly, she has one of the better lines of the episode, where she mocks Neon for having a tummy ache. And I did appreciate that. I also love the fact that she can just take a bullet and she's like, yeah, and? But she doesn't really do much or reveal anything new about her character other than she wants to kill all the old types so that new types can just be the only species of humanity, which is fine. It doesn't really feel like her motivation in the original series, but this is years later, so I can accept that. Then we have Char! He's here. And he has a very strange habit of explaining things to himself. There's a couple different moments where he's talking, but he's just talking to no one. No one else is in the room. So he's literally talking to the audience. He is fourth wall breaking. It is horribly sloppy. Considering how many characters we have, he could have exposited about these various things to an actual character. It would have made sense. Instead, he's like turning to the audience and going like, hey, there are two alphas. One of them must be stopped. Hey, here's the reason why I'm going to go kill Lala. And you're like, shouldn't you be explaining this to Machu, Neon, Lady Cassilia, anyone? At this point, I don't even consider putting a number other than 0 on my rubric when it comes to characters, because I know we're not going to get anything else other than that. And it's a shame, because these characters could have been interesting, they could have been likable, and instead, this is what we get. It's pathetic. And it doesn't matter how much I complain about it, it won't change anything. We have one episode left. Nothing's getting better, nothing's going to improve, everything's just going to be as bad as it is now, or worse. Speaking of worse, let's talk about the aesthetics. Whether it is degradation or stagnation, I'm not entirely certain, but the aesthetics just don't do it for me anymore. And I think a lot of that is just due to the fact that either I've seen their tricks, or their worst habits are really taking over. When it comes to the audio, we do get some nice chill wave kind of music going on early in the beginning, which clashes horribly with Neon talking about wanting to blow up Earth in order to see the guy she's kind of into, I guess. And it made me realize I really like the background music of this series, and they keep using it wrong. And I don't know how people with as much experience as the team of this show don't understand how music works. However, there are other good things in this episode. For example, Shuji appears and has a complete sentence. That's a huge upgrade from previous episodes. Not only that, he gets more than one complete sentence. He has at least 2, possibly even 3. Was not expecting that. Having the torn in half fortune cookie of dialogue that Shuji is, it is nice to see him actually talk like a human being for once. It only took them 11 episodes. But Shuji's still a garbage character. That's why I didn't even talk about him in the character section, because there's nothing else to say other than this comment. However, they did the thing I absolutely hate. The biggest music sin. Misusing music. Over and over again in this episode. But the ending brought me to rage. When Shuji is talking about new types and the other dimension, they start playing Beyond the Time. And not just like a cover, not a we're just going to use the background music of it so it's evocative. No, they literally play the song. Then the ARC 78-2 shows up, which I want to point out, it is not the mobile suit that is associated with that song. The song is from Char's Counterattack, and it's a wonderful song. And they use it so terribly. They're like, hey, you know this song? You know what's going to happen next. Amuro's here. And they even use like the black scrolling credits, like this is the end of a movie, which is also a bizarre choice. Now, I hate the fact that they would take such an iconic Gundam song and use it inappropriately, because that in and of itself is enough to give a 0 in this area. But on a personal note, that song has a lot of meaning to me. There is a wonderful person who is no longer with me, and I associated the song with her. And people might say that's weird or whatever, but it had meaning to me. And since I will never see her again, hearing that song and seeing it used in such a horrible way feels like a personal insult. And while my rubric is not built around my personal feelings, other than the fun section, it is still something that really goads me, and I absolutely hate it. The visuals continue to decline, and it's hard for me to explain how. First off, the fights are mostly bland. There is a lot of laser disco in this. However, there are a couple minor moments that stand out. Machu trying her best to dodge the all-range attack. I thought that was pretty good. The reasoning for how she can do it is stupid. As a new type, I'll just allow that she's a new type and she can kind of just do the dodginess, rather than getting crap advice from a dumb character. Then we have, of course, the Gien fight with the mobile armor. I think that was actually really well done too. You actually see Xavier use all the different weapons of his Gien in the fight. I really did like that. And seeing how he dodges and maneuvers, I thought was really, really great. But it doesn't make up for the fact that most of the fighting is relatively banal, or we get just the laser disco and laziness of that regard. Though, considering the company that's working on this, they may just be running out of money. This also had something I haven't seen since Witch from Mercury, which is the visual fluff all over the screen. Here's just a bunch of little things everywhere, and I guess it's supposed to be creative or something, but it really isn't. It's just a mess on the screen, and it's a sign that for some reason the staff is just not putting out the effort, or they can't afford the effort. Like I said earlier. Finally, all the motif stuff just goes away. And this is exemplified by the fact that at the very beginning, you can see the destruction of a Bawaku, and you hear kind of the whale song sound, and mixed with the screams, and then that weird like water drop sound that happens once everything is gone. So they have it there from the previous episode, and this one you have none of the motifs playing out. And you'd think, as you're coming to the end, you'd want to play up on those motifs in order to make everything tie together. But that would require planning, and that would require creativity. Things our production staff clearly lack. The aesthetics in this episode are pretty bad. And while there are good aspects of them, the good doesn't outweigh the bad. It doesn't even bring it up to like a middle point. It's just, hey, these good things show me how much bad everything else is. And it's very, very annoying when the one thing I've defended in the show since episode 1 is the aesthetics. And yet, here we are, where not even those can save the show anymore. There's clearly been a decline. And I don't know what caused it, but it is there. And if you don't believe me, go watch episode 3 or episode 4, and then watch this one, and tell me which one is better. I'm sure you already know what I'm going to say, but still, let's go to the final verdict. This might be the single worst episode of Gundam I've seen since Witch from Mercury. And considering, since watching that show, I attempted a rewatch of Reconquista in G, that's saying something. The rage I felt at this episode I was screaming at my TV at multiple times. The fact that my brother and I had to talk for quite some time to calm me down enough to be able to record this is something I can't say about Witch from Mercury. So congratulations, G-Quuuuux. You're able to piss me off so much, I actually had to take a break before recording. And that does not come up nearly as often as one might think. That's why, for this special achievement, I'm giving you a 0 out of 5. The story is almost non-existent, and a lot of it doesn't matter. It's so much exposition and setup for next episode. Next episode is the last episode of the series. You should not be having exposition or setup in the penultimate episode. What kind of idiot wrote this? The characters are shallow husks, or they full-on contradict their own beliefs. The audio nearly made me throw something at my TV. The visuals are fine. They're about average for what the show's provided, but they are not doing anything new. And they are already dropping all the motifs and all the different little things they've been introducing throughout the show. They've completely forgotten about them because they didn't know what they were doing with them in the first place. And obviously, I am not having fun with this series anymore. The sad thing is, I use a rubric because it allows me to organize my thoughts. But a side effect of having a rubric is that it's very, very hard to fail. The reason why teachers use a rubric is because even your worst students will still get points for the minimal effort stuff. Even a bad assignment will still technically have a passing grade. And if you look at the scores I gave to the series, you will notice quite a few passing grades. Well, I mean, depending on what you consider a passing grade, but for the most part, almost every episode passed. To be this bad, you have to put out effort to actually achieve it. You have to make me so angry and so disgusted that I can't even validate your sort of okay visuals with a 0.5. But even if I did that, this would be a 0.5 out of 5. Not much of an improvement, honestly. It still tells the audience exactly what they should know. This show is horrible. I said before that I'd tell people to watch the highlight clips. I'm at a stage now where don't even do that. Just pretend the series doesn't exist. It's hot garbage, it's not getting better, and frankly, I can't wait to finish the last episode and be done with this. If you like the show, please look in the mirror and try to figure out where your life went wrong. If you hate the show, please let me know in the comments, because I like to know that I'm not alone. Until next time, I will be back with the final episode next week. So until then, I'll see you at the tavern.